to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We need approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Approval of minutes from July 1st, 2024.
If there's no suggestions, otherwise I thought they read well, so I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
I'll abstain.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Courtney, did you hear? He's abstaining. Motion carries. First item on the agenda is to approve fiscal year 25 salaries. I know last week, this was on last week's agenda. We needed some clarification from the Board of Health. We received that. Is there any other questions? There was another clarification as well from emergency management.
Make a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 salaries.
Is there a second
I'll second.
discussion?
I'll ask a question. It was brought up last week. There was questions about public health, in which Maggie, responded, and I read it, but I just wasn't part of the conversation at that time during the budget hearings. What was the understanding during the budget as far as those stipends? They were to continue, not continue? That's the only question I've got is speak now or forever hold your peace, right?
Well, to tell you the truth, they had, if I recall right, they did present a justification for it and changed some job
Descriptions.
And so it was discussed at that time. And they said that it should be,
Discussed and approved.
well,
By the Board of Health.
by the Board of Health.
So what was,
So public
You
health
gotta remember, Board of Health is
separate.
yep, I know it's a new gig now, and I think I understand it, but we're still responsible for their budget. And if it falls within the budget, what was the understanding? Is all I'm
We did
asking.
not give them any more money to go.
Our contribution to them stayed level funding at 75,000.
So
So
they're,
essentially, they just shifted things around.
no, they're funding, so their salaries alone are 90,000. They're funding the rest of it through grant.
So the county contributes 90,
No,
Seven.
not
75.
75, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and the 90 was that's their salary.
That's their
I'm with
salaries.
you now. Okay. And so we're funding 75, however way they want to spend it. Is that
Yep.
your
Correct.
understanding then? Okay.
Correct.
My question was, the stipends were originally given 10,000 and 15,000 when public health left St. Anne.
It was kind of an interim thing. is the way
Right,
I
and that was my
think
question is,
recall
how is
that.
it staying now that we have and then they hired a part-time person, a county employee, who is now taking the director position. So my question is the same as yours. So why are the stipends continuing? And that's when they did rewrite their job descriptions and include more. But when you look at it here, it just stands out when you see the two stipends where part of their money is coming from environmental health. And then part of it's coming from public health.
I guess I don't have a question, it's more of a statement. I have a concern with the projection of salaries in the future. And the county is only going to be getting 75,000 as far as my understanding. How do you sustain increases in salaries? And once we get the back grant here, once you don't receive a grant that you're typically used to receiving, do they let somebody go? Do they take pay cuts? I mean, it's a huge concern because I've always agreed, I don't think it's very sustainable to just kind of on a whim think you're gonna get grants. I mean, that's not forever money, that's not always money. Our 75,000 as of right now, we do it every year, but the money's there. I have a hard time with it, but it is what it is, and they are their own governing board minus their budget. So how they do their budget within, they can do that.
I think that's my concern too, is sustainability of it.
I think it's out of our hands once there's 75,000. So it goes to that board to make decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then all of the other budgets and all the departments, there's no question with those. That was what was requested during the budget hearings and so on and so forth, so. Okay.
There was a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 2 is secondary roads. Zach, we have a utility permit from the REC, and then to review and potentially approve equipment quotes for a new.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Really,
Like you said, utility permit for Raccoon Valley REC. This is just taking a service line across Robin Avenue. This one is in Newton, section 11. This is an existing grain bin cattle yard site that they're getting underground service to rather than above ground service. So
I'm going to approve.
I'll second. Any more discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you. We received 3 quotes for a wheel loader. This is to replace one of the ones we have. We are trading in a 1996 model. It served us well. It's just age and rust is getting the better of it. Received 3 quotes from one for a John Deere through Murphy Tractor and Equipment, one for a Hyundai through Rooters here in Carroll, and one a Caterpillar through Ziegler Cat through hopefully soon to be Carroll. So, as I reviewed the quotes, the Ziegler Cat came in just under as the low quote. With the familiarity with that, able to plug in to do diagnostics, as well as resale value and some of those. That's the one that I would recommend. The Ziegler Cat came in at $260,969. That's after trade-in of our existing loader. That is included. Also included in there is one attachment other than the standard bucket, and that's a set of heavy-duty forks. We do not have any of those right now, but for unloading pipe and whatnot, that'll be a very handy attachment to have. Took a lot going through this, comparing, making sure warranties and everything else was as close to apples as we could, but that's kind of where we stand.
you might want to see what the other quote, the other one.
Yep. Rooters, the Hyundai came in at $261,000 or in 0 cents. After trade. Very, very close. And the John Deere through Murphy came in at $346,900 after trade.
Their iron's a little.
It is.
We spoke about it. Go ahead and make a motion to, approve the Ziegler Cat Model 950 CG wheel loader. Amount of $260,000.
$996.69.
Within $30 less than our county. That's what that was impressive.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
What year is your trade-in?
The 96, I believe.
Yeah.
928, yeah.
And are you budgeted for this?
Yep, we are.
Including the forks.
Yep.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. All I got.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have one plat that is ready for, requested by Dave Worzer. Has everybody had a moment to take a look at this?
If no issues, I'll make a motion to approve the
Second. A motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to review and consider for approval the Breeze Company maintenance agreement, not only for the Carroll County Jail, but also for the courthouse for the new HVAC system that we just installed over the last 2 years. My one question I had for Courtney was what we paid previously in 2024 for the jail, and that was roughly 16,000.
Correct.
Their proposed agreement for both buildings would be $16,700.
It makes sense to me. I mean, that, the combined price. Couple $1,000 savings.
Once they combine both buildings. This is a year by year contract.
Yes.
And I think it's wise if they can do both buildings at the same time for some efficiencies.
I'll make a motion to approve Drees agreement for $16,700.
I'll second it, but I will make a comment too, that, I think it's good that it's an annual renewal. It's kind of try before you buy.
Yeah.
It's not a long-term, questions could come up, maybe like you had as far as, what's included, what's not included and so on. Then the board at this time next year, time for renewal, can evaluate it. Put it out for bid
If there's other
if you want,
This building is under warranty, so.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely makes
Next
sense
year.
for this year, but next year,
Yeah.
and they might find out that 16.7 is too much of a bargain too, so.
Yeah,
We just don't know what we're getting into, so
I agree.
I won't be here at that time, but, I would encourage the board to, consider that next year, so I will second that motion.
And I'll agree with your comments much as well. There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is to approve payables in the amount of $589,569.95. I did have a question about the medical examiners bills and the Northwest Iowa probation, but Jean and I spoke over the weekend and my questions were answered.
Been a long time since I've seen these. Things have changed. That's are they still twice a month? And then is the posting date, if the posting date's all the same through all of them, is that, we try and post those all in one day?
The post date is the check date,
Okay,
so yeah, we do that.
wow, that's a lot of work. I didn't have any specific line item questions though, I just, been a while since I've seen these, and it's like,
Well, I had some questions myself too, but I got them answered.
your tax dollars.
I looked through them on Friday and had a bunch of questions, but they're all answered.
Stuff on that building construction, the remodel, how much do we have left on that? You know,
In our reserves,
are we done?
That's the final.
That's final.
Zero.
And I will make a note on the Maple River, we were able to get all their, bills paid. So, with the county paying the other one and these, correct?
Did that go out, the option deal? Okay.
And then with the extra one I brought down for raise, the total's 589, 601, 21. Yeah, $30.
I'm just admitting that it's gonna take me a couple of bill cycles to get, to see anything that looks out of whack. I mean, that, you know, again, I just haven't had,
I'll make a recommendation. We did it the week prior to you. We did bring down all the bills individually in the room. They set up in the, there's 2 stacks in the plumbing office. Fridays, or it's a good, I mean, not only are you seeing it on the spreadsheet that Courtney sends out, but you can go up there and you can actually see detail of what it is, and might answer more questions than just seeing it on.
invoices are attached.
Mhm.
You're still signing off on each and every one. We don't do that anymore. Board chair doesn't have to sign off on those.
Never did.
The department heads sign off on all the individual payables, and then we, the board signs this bill
Okay.
sheet.
Now, I have no further.
Roads keeps theirs on roads, so if you want to look at theirs, you can go up there.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by who?
And the third.
I know that was tied. Who wants it?
Take the other one.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We didn't get the signature line on the sheet, so if you wanted to sign.
Next item on the agenda, item number 6, is to discuss changes potentially to the Carroll or the county compensation boards. I think everybody received the email. This has been going on in the legislative forum. They've been talking about it for years, to going away from having the compensation board or restructuring the compensation board. Currently, Carroll County does have a compensation board. And what that consists of is every elected official has a representative. They have a meeting, maybe potentially more than that. They come together and discuss pay raises or no pay raises. As of right now, we currently know on July 1st, the compensation board no longer exists. As statewide. As Carroll County, we can to decide, we do not have to decide today, we have plenty of time, how we want to move forward. If we want to keep with the compensation board, or if the board of supervisors would like to take it under their own review. And this is more open for discussion. I see we have some people in attendance as well. So I'm open to ideas, and then eventually if we decide what we want to do, we would have to create a resolution.
Which the ISAC had provided a
Yes,
Template.
so this is thoughts, ideas, discussion? Everybody jump at once.
I'll start. I've got a couple, maybe a question and clarification. This is a document that ISAC provided for us, which I think is helpful, but of course, it's not the actual code or all of the nuances and things, but it didn't necessarily, you might recall years and years ago, I was in office at the time, and they allowed the supervisors to carve themselves out of the equation, which was a good move. Let me just give you my disclaimer. I have advocated for this for many years, even before I was on the board, long since after the board, and by surprise, I just found out about it last week that they actually went ahead and did it. So I didn't have any direct conversation with anybody, any of the legislators this year, but they just have long known my feelings about the compensation board and, you know, the many things that it's a flawed system, in my opinion. And they made a good move. I believe it was in 2010, where the supervisors were allowed to carve themselves out. And of course, you guys all know that I've always advocated, you always make two separate motions, you know, unless you're just gonna unilaterally agree, and then I guess it's a waste of time, but to always carve the supervisors out of it. And I didn't see in any of the ISAC's information that that is still allowed. So the recommendation I would make to this board is that that remains still the intent, that the board would be able to do that, whether or not a comp board takes form or we choose not to. That if you choose not to, then you're still gonna just, you know, divvy it out per budget anyway. So it kind of takes care of itself. But, you know, that was just one point that I would make. The other observation I would make is, if we choose not to have a compensation board, and there's no representation for the elected officials, the Board of Supervisors could go rogue. I mean, there's a real possibility that, you know, and I'm using that term rather casually, but, you know, the Board of Supervisors would now have the full autonomy and authority to do whatever it wishes. And, you know, I can understand why that would, you know, cause concern as well. The one thing that I think would be a benefit with no more compensation board is it would eliminate the leapfrogging that has occurred in recent years and for pretty much about as long as I can remember. You know what I'm talking about is, you know, the one person this year gets double the raise than everybody else does and all that. But it seems like if you want to look at it historically, that has taken place, certainly within the last decade and a half. And it does make note about, you know, the effect that on the sheriff. The sheriff still, we have to follow the back the blue thing, so that still is in effect. But then holistically, when you look at it, the compensation board and by its removal would impact the raises that it has in all of the offices with said deputies. Because if you take a look at what, you know, the county is still, is it roughly 120 employees? And if you, and there's only one union now, which, you know, is good. That was another major improvement. But when you carve out, you know, the people that are affected in the elected offices and their deputies, then that equalizes it across the 120 staff. So those are my comments right now. And so I'll end it by saying I am certainly in favor of the removal of the compensation board. And you might make a decision long after I'm gone, and which is, you know, I got to respect that. So, you know, my feelings, if you want to make a decision today, or before November 11th. Once again, this is something that I've advocated for a long time, and I still remain rather resolved that the compensation board, the process needs to disappear.
I'll make some comments here. I see that according to this here, the compensation board of supervisors can schedule it greater or less than compensation board recommendation. So I think that's still in place yet that way. It lets us do, doesn't have to be by equal percentages anymore. So without being just on equal percentage. One of the things I think is the biggest thing that's in this code right now is that whoever, if it's a compensation board or the supervisors, has to provide documentation on their justification. So that means there's gotta be some work done on it, and, you know, I've always liked the compensation board for the fact that it kind of gave us a guide. But I'm not necessarily in favor of the way the thing operated. I think too, I agree with you, it's probably a flawed system, but it was a guide for the board to operate on. And then still, this year, regardless of whatever happens, it still falls back to this board to make the final decision. So, but there is some difference in here that gives the board more of a justification to look at each one individually and either raise it, or they can even, according to this, what I got here in front of me, they can lower those percent, and it don't have to be all done on an equal percentage.
It's not a one size fits all anymore. But right now, we have 10 elected people and 14 deputies.
So what you're saying is that the comp board recommended 8% raise. We back then could cut it by 25%, or say 50%, and then everyone had to be at 4%. Now you can go individual. That's a game changer.
But I think I think the comp board, I'm gonna disagree with Mark a little bit. I think it's a good starting point for, annual increases for the elected official and their deputies.
I was with Mark on this, and when I started, I thought that the comp board, just the way it, where you had to do an equal cut or equal raise or vice versa was not the right way and the right answer. But I am agreeing with you a little bit that if you can have someone give them a recommendation, then you can go and change it, alter it if you need to. I like that idea.
But again, I think the big game changer on this is the work has to be documented why you came up with that reason.
Yeah.
On the comp board or whoever's doing the initial recommendation.
Comparables, office size or.
And in the past, it was the comp board shell on the sheriff. It wasn't the supervisor shell. So we were able to do whatever we wanted on that. But I myself, I've kind of got mixed feelings, but this still boils down, it comes down to us.
Open discussion, right? No feelings hurt.
Yeah.
So I mean, I appreciate your point, but I would only challenge and retort by saying a starting point, what's wrong with the CPI? That's known well in advance. And then ISAC has data right before our eyes. To me, the starting points are already there, Scott.
I agree. And I agree with you. Some of that ISAC data is not always correct though. On, like number of employees underneath there and vice versa.
And
I found that out.
different duties.
Yes. But I agree that it's a starting, but it's not 100% accurate.
No, I mean, Mark, every year CPI is.
But
the
neither
starting.
Yeah.
is someone's recommendation
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
100%. It's
Yeah,
a
right.
feeling, it's
Yeah, you're right.
it's
But the-
subjectivity, you know, it's
The
not.
comp board
objective.
usually does their homework and does the comparables. That's what I'm talking about, the starting point.
my problem with the comp board before was that where, you know, you have one, they want 22% raise on one guy,
Back to blue.
5% on this one. Well, you're not gonna give someone 22% raise probably, so you cut it in half and this person is getting you know, getting the short end of the stick. Well, that was the issue. I wouldn't mind it if you can alter that, you know. Now, it doesn't have to be equal representation between all of them. Now, I'm not against the comp board.
I
wasn't
remember
for
the
it.
year that actually happened. The person that deserved the raise probably, in my opinion, deserved the raise the most, was given like a 2% raise, and someone was given like a 5%.
Yeah.
So we cut that in half, so that person got a 2.5, person that I thought deserved a raise, got a less than 1%. That's the problem with that system.
Yeah. That's why it's gone.
It's just been my observation through the years that by the representative, by advocating for their their appointee, it removes their subjectivity. I mean, if I'm gonna go to bat for somebody, I'm gonna, not necessarily, come from the heart. It's gonna come by advocating for the person. Which again, it's wonderful, but as you look at like, conservation, library boards, chambers of commerces and CADCs and that type of thing, they advocate, if they're a member of that board, they advocate. They want the very best library, the very best, and then these advocates also are going to advocate in a like manner for their elected official. And to me, it just clouds the subjectivity that we can do with data. And again, remove all the personalities and labels and names and lovely people these all are, I just think that again, those of us that have been in business before never had a comp board.
Everything was merit-based. In
we-
the private sector,
We
it's
met the
merit-based.
demand, of what it took to keep that person in place. No one advocated for them. I occasionally got a call from someone's wife, said, give Billy Bob a raise, would you? But for the most part, this, I'm just trying to mirror truly what the private sector does and let supply and demand dictate how we keep people in. That's all I can give you. And maybe more will come, you're not looking for a decision today. And maybe you guys are gonna say, get rid of this guy and let's get someone else in the D5 position who wants a comp board. And I respect that, but I'm here today, I'm here now. I'm not gonna sit on my hands and tell you how I feel, particularly when I have lobbied for this for so long. And everything, it finally happened. And now's the opportunity to, do it as I see closely to what the private sector does.
Any comments from any elected officials?
Can I make my comment first?
Okay,
I've heard all you guys speak, and I agree with majority of everything you guys have said. My concern is 3 years ago, I was not for the comp board. Now, we're gonna take the names, the personalities, everything out of there because those people are great people and it is a volunteer board. They're not being paid. If they were being paid, this would be a whole different conversation because that'd be taxpayers' dollars going towards the board. A couple years ago, not very happy with the results. Last year, extremely happy with the results, but that's in my opinion. I was happy with what they came back with. With what is in this proposed, well, not proposed, this actual new changes. I'm not against the compensation board because it still gives the full power to the board of supervisors, but is it redundancy? Because they can have this meeting, come with a recommendation, and we can say, well, no. Or we're gonna go higher, we're gonna go less. Are we doing redundancy? Because I don't wanna make it more complicated, more convoluted than what it needs to be. I mean, government, that's one thing they fail in, and I'll say to everybody, they make it so complicated and so confusing that the average person can't figure out what anybody's doing. They do it on purpose. So I just don't wanna do anything that's redundant, and I respect everybody that has in the past sat on the or the compensation board. I think, I mean, the elected officials aren't going to find somebody to represent them, that's not going to represent them well. Just like an interview, you're not gonna have references that have bad things to say about you. As far as coming up with reasons for a pay increase, people should have that anyway. I mean, you don't just come in and say, I want $100,000 because smile. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I agree with all the comments that are being made today, but I think this also, these changes, it's tricky because it did basically, maybe the compensation board doesn't even want to exist. Maybe they're like, you know, these new changes, is there a reason why we're even meeting? Because I know there's
More of
been.
an advisory role almost.
Yeah, I know there's been some friction and it's unfortunate because you can't take any of this personal. Back that up. The elected officials definitely should take it personal because that is their livelihood, that is their pay. But when it becomes the conference or the compensation board and the board of supervisors, that shouldn't be personable. That is just business. And it has created friction in the past. Sometimes there's friction in business, but that's all I've got to say. Right now, I'm really kind of undecided. I feel like it could potentially be just redundant by having this board, but it also is a good sounding board, and then come up with numbers, figures, and the reasons why. But I will say going forward, if we get rid of this, fine. If we keep it, each elected official has to reappoint with the approval of the board of supervisors, their new advocate.
Representative.
Yeah,
One thing, so 2 years ago, the first year, and I think it was a 15%. I'd have to look up my notes, but I think it was 15% difference asking between elected officials from the compensation board. And last year was 9-day difference. I felt like it was more realistic. So it was a huge change. The first year I was an advocate too, like, hey, this is out of control, but just my 2 cents.
if you want to open it up to anybody, I know we typically do that at the end of the meeting, allow public comment. But I do, so we have some elected officials and maybe potentially compensation board members here. If you'd like to speak quickly on this topic, feel free. Mr. Warden, please introduce yourself too, if you.
I'm John Worden. I'm the Carroll County Attorney, and thank you for having me. I can't promise that I'll be quick, but you just wave your finger and I'll stop talking.
I don't do weak things.
Well, give me a wink. First, this is the first time I've been in this room with this board. I think this is wonderful. It's befitting the dignity of this board, the importance of this board. It allows public access. Government is all about the grassroots. I had prepared some remarks and I sort of threw them out of my mind because as I sit here today and look at those flags, I think about the national anthem, which I heard so many times in the last week. And I thought about our founding fathers in 1776, who established a form of government unknown in the world at that time. A complicated form of government where frankly, people sometimes don't understand. A system of checks and balances. We don't want a king, nor do we want 5 kings. Checks and balances between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial system. Checks and balances in county government. We're not happenstance. We're not something interjected to prevent people from making quick and easy decisions. County government, which has boards with their own autonomy. The Board of Health, the Conservation Board. Elected officials that are on equal footing with the Board of Supervisors, the auditor, the sheriff, the recorder, and the attorney. It's that system of checks and balances that insists upon collaboration and cooperation, because that's the only way you wade your way through it. Without people having their own personal agenda, their own personal philosophy that they want to impose on others. And I don't want to respond to particular remarks, but except Mark, you brought it up. We are now back to a 5-member board. we saw what happens about one rotten apple can spoil the barrel. As far as I am concerned. And these are feelings that others have as well. And I'm so glad that we now have 5 supervisors who want to follow the law, who want to make good policy. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Mike Franny, and I'm the formally and officially fired as far as July 1 chairman of the compensation board. I think it's always been hard in the compensation board, in my opinion, and Gene hit it right on the head, that ISAC provides the numbers of salaries. What's that salary? But we, you know, unless you call each, I represent the recorder, you know. Do I call the recorder of Crawford County and see how many documents that recorder records versus my recorder? Or, you know, does that recorder's office handle the passports like mine does? The treasurer, do they handle the driver's license in every county? So I think it's very hard and I think it'd be hard for you as a supervisor board too, to do that, but it's both. I think it's a big challenge for you to make a decision on this, and there is some redundancy, as you spoke on, Stephanie. I think that you are right, but it's hard in my opinion, that you know, a comp board meets for 1 hour a year, maybe 2. So, you know, sometimes I think that the supervisors have a better handle on. Just like in private business, the business owner doesn't have a comp board. The individual person lobbies for their salary. So, thank you.
Thanks for all your volunteer time.
Thanks for firing me.
You were a great chair, Mike. The check's in the mail.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do with your free time, right?
yeah, I got that 1 hour back, right?
Is there any more comments that would like to be made? I don't think there's a decision today, so we are just voicing our opinions, and I encourage you to reach out to other counties too. I've reached out to 2. Maybe get some opinions. I know we're going to ISAC in August. So talk to other supervisors, other elected officials, and see what they think and how they feel. When would you guys like to readdress this?
Before November 11th. Just a little levity in the room. I'd like to know all of the elected officials here, what their sentiments are. John, you were very eloquent, but I don't want to miss it. You'd like to see the comp board stay?
I think a comp board, first of all, on a personal level, is one opportunity where someone stands up and says, here's what the Carroll County Attorney ought to be paid. That's one time a year when that
So
happens.
your answer is yes, you'd like to see it stay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I think requiring the supervisors to listen to the grassroots, not just doing your own investigation with your own filter, and making a public statement is extremely important. Thank you.
Anybody care to say right now? Maybe you don't have an opinion on it yet, but.
Ashley Witchrock, I'm the Carroll County Recorder. I would like to personally see the comp board stay. I do, like John said, the checks and balances and having someone stand up for you to just present what you do in your office. I do think maybe what Mike Franny said, maybe having a comp board rep who better understands your office could help, you know, in situations where they feel like they only take that short hour. I do appreciate kind of what Mike said as well, that they can adjust it differently now. That to me makes the world of difference, because those equal raises, one person's raise at 2.5 and 1 was still different because we're all at different salaries to start. And that was almost infuriating to me every year, just on that fact alone. And it is thankless. And I know it's a lot of time, not just the hour, because they do research beyond that, or at least the elected probably gives them research. I personally would like to see it stay. I like to have someone advocate for me, and we're elected. It just feels better if someone else can be that voice.
Thank you.
Lisa Wagner, Carroll County Treasurer. I agree. I like to have someone speak up for my office. It's not a personal issue. It's supposed to be for that position. So if someone's there to speak up for the treasurer's office, besides myself saying what we do, is have someone else speak up for that position, because I may not be there forever. That person is there for that office, that position. So I would like to have the compensation board stay.
Thank you.
You're the last one in the room,
I
Courtney.
wouldn't have to say anything. I don't know how I feel yet.
That's fine.
I mean,
Too late.
I like the idea of having somebody advocate for me, but then I also feel like I could advocate for myself as well. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd be happy either way, I guess. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. At this time, I don't know, that might change when I maybe talk to some other counties, but.
You know, one of the thoughts that came to my mind as we were sitting here, and I was kind of like Mark, and kind of advocated both ways on this thing. Sometimes better watch out what you ask for, you might get it.
Back the Blue threw a wrench into it a couple years ago. That really, and it's.
Unintended consequences.
It is,
And what it was.
and I think that caused a lot of hard feelings.
Mhm.
Without saying, I mean, with saying we respect our law enforcement. 100%,
Yeah,
but
everybody was.
it did throw
But
a
if the
wrench in it.
sheriff needed to be, if we got an honest recommendation that his salary should be 20% higher. And everybody else gave true recommendations of where they belong and we reduce it, then yeah, it wasn't a.
But these changes will allow us,
100%.
with or without the compensation board, I can respect all your guys' opinions on wanting somebody to advocate for you.
But this does also still back the blue yet.
It does, but now we can take the sheriff's percentage
Separate.
and segregate it out from somebody else that might have been only at the 4 or 5%. So we're not having to cut it completely across the board because it isn't equitable at all.
Yeah.
So it's just hard because these changes that they have in there still gives the board of supervisors final say whether we go up, down, nothing.
It actually gives us more authority, in my opinion, versus.
But I can understand how the elected officials definitely would want somebody to advocate for their office, and they do have to provide facts, and then I'm not saying that no office never has, because they typically do, but now they can, provide what this actual individual office does, this is why they deserve a raise, so on and so forth.
But and I don't know how these smaller communities can do, counties can do this. If they follow that back to blue thing, that's gonna cost them. And they don't have the valuation to pay that.
Yeah.
I think it kind of took the reasoning out of the whole thing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to hear what everybody had to say because, I mean, they're here, they obviously have a vested interest in it. And, I'm gonna come back to something that Ashton said, and not to pick on you at all. It was something that, my ears perked up when you said you like someone like Mike who understands the recorder's office and the recorder's duties. Do you feel at any time that this board doesn't understand the recorder's office better than Mike? Now, Mike's a real estate professional. I get that. He might be in there a couple of times a week, but isn't it our responsibility? You're supposed to know that office better than us, but wouldn't we next be understand? I mean, do you feel, and now's the time to speak, do you feel at any time that this board does not understand your duties and what goes on in that office?
I wouldn't say that I don't know that they don't understand the basics, and I'm just I have a new part-timer who worked in the county for 40 years. She did not realize how much stuff we do over there. I think she's floored. And when you don't work there, you don't know. And that just gives me an opportunity to share with, for example, Mike or my representative. Oh gosh, I didn't know, I think my new part-timer who was in the assessors for 40 years had no idea. So I'm not saying they don't know, but if you're not in there, you don't know, if that makes any sense.
It takes me back again. All of this memory's been coming back the last 10 days, just. But, you know, I think that's why it's so important that supervisors, I don't know what they're doing, you know, but I always tried to spend, I was here every week. And I know that some of you guys do some of that too on a regular basis. So that, now I know that if you threw me in there right now, I would also say, hey, Judy, I didn't know these guys worked so damn hard. Yeah, I get that. But I think when you're able to witness it firsthand and foremost, we don't get to see what John does. He's outside of the courthouse right now, but I mean, you know, but, you know, my heart kind of sank a little bit that perhaps we don't understand things in the recorder's office that perhaps we should. And for that, mea culpa.
Anything else?
One last thing, would you, again, when you get to the road, get down that road, is reconsider flat dollar raises rather than percentages. And that's not real popular with the higher paid people. You know, I'm just saying that out of respect for your offices. And as far as the personalities behind those offices, but it all spends at Walmart the same. And I remember we did it, you know, once, I believe, Dan Nealon, I remember championing that thing. And it wasn't real popular, but it was very popular among the $40,000 people. You know, but if you could at least consider maybe every other year, every third year or something like that, that I would be supportive of your consideration.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for their input and continue to kind of do your own research, and we will readdress this within the next couple of months. We do have time. Courtney, when is the cutoff that we have to have a decision?
I think there's one.
There is no one.
I
If we don't make a
It's
decision, it
important
just
to
goes
do it
away.
in November.
Yeah,
or
in time for
before.
budgets.
Yeah, usually in November or December is when the council board meets.
At least give the elected officials an opportunity, because they do have to reappoint their representative.
So either, my recommendation would be either August, end of August, beginning of October at the latest, so that the elected officials have time to come to the board for an appointment, if that is what we do going forward.
I'd say the very earliest end of August, because we gotta do that time thing. I mean, it'd be good to get a feel from all everybody else.
And thank you, everybody.
Not necessarily that we gotta do what they're.
Isaac
23rd
is,
to 25th, I think,
August.
August.
right first, second,
Okay, say that again. 20, 21,
22.
22.
23.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, and thank you, everybody in attendance, for
Yes,
your
thank you.
comments and your contributions. And Mike, sorry I fired
Madam Chair, last week I prepared some papers for a motion, a resolution, and a notice on the Halber Ridge donation. And I forgot to look at the agenda to see, is that on the agenda?
Public hearings next Monday.
You know, it was already set last week?
Yep.
Because the notice has to be published,
It got published.
not more than 20, and not less than 4 days in advance.
So it got published on.
So, okay, we're good, we're good, okay. Madam Auditor, to
Right.
account,
It's on the 15th at 9 or 9:30.
Randy gave it to me to send.
okay,
We sent it on Monday, but it didn't get published till the end of the week.
because I was thinking with a twice a day newspaper, it's harder to make the cutoff.
It
Twice a
can
week.
be. You can.
Twice a week,
Yeah.
twice a week, twice a week.
But we're lucky we meet on Mondays, so.
When I was 10 years old, I delivered the Des Moines Register in the morning and the Des Moines Tribune in the afternoon. There was such a thing. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
9:30.
Okay. Next item we have is to review committee assignments. This is to just kind of give Mark an update now that he's sitting on the board. I think we basically said that his committee commitments would be what our prior Mrs. Scatterico had. But I did notice when we were going to, Gina and I were talking yesterday, the one that you sent out, has this been updated at all? Or is this the updated?
This is the updated.
January 23.
Not Art Barron's off, or you got somebody
I
else.
saw that too, our veterans.
This is a year old.
On the board, to me, this says 23 at the top instead of 24.
Then this is the wrong one.
Well, and the other one I.
Sorry, it's the wrong one.
I just figured the wrong one got sent out because there's a couple things we noticed and I was like, we know.
Well, I questioned Paul at my town, was she still on that advisory?
We weren't
board?
supposed to be looking at those, we were supposed to be. looking at
You know, when I get something sent to me, I kind of look at it all.
I apologize for that. This is the,
Glad you got, I was confused.
You know,
although the committee assignment things didn't really change.
No, except for under Mike's, on this, the 911 and the emergency management is actually under Cindy.
That's what I have
Also-
on mine.
that knowledge,
See, ours is just, we got your old one.
that last one, the knowledge of property values by reason of occupation. I'm not gonna mention any names, but that top one. If he's still on that list, let me make sure we need to get him off of this next year
Oh, okay.
for health reasons.
Do we maybe just wanna go through the ones that he's gonna sit on, so we can update our list?
As long as they're all covered.
So as of right now, it would be Region 12, Council of Governments, DCAT committee, but how active that, I am unfamiliar.
They meet every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Who would be a contact there so I can,
Molly Scott,
DCAT, Region 12 DCAT, Molly Scott.
she's in the Court Avenue building, in the Fricky building.
And then the Region 5 hazmat, which I will tell you, they were here 2 weeks ago, did a presentation with the hazmat truck, might have been 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Okay, because on this, it shows that Mike is on that, but Cindy said she was on it, so.
Cindy was, this is wrong.
Okay,
Oh, this is a long one.
Yeah, this is the one.
okay, so,
You know
Do
what?
you want me to go get a new one?
I don't know, I mean,
No.
as long as,
It's literally on the county website.
Yeah, I'm going to the county website.
okay, so this isn't the one that's on the website?
No. This was just the wrong one, send out in attachments, and it's,
Okay. So hazmat, okay, so EMA, E911, Child Care Board, Region 5 hazmat, Region 12 DCAT. And then it lists her partnership for families, do you know, is that still in existence too?
Yeah, but they was looking for a different supervisor, weren't you?
no, that was different.
Huh?
Not that they were looking for somebody to replace the board of supervisors.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They didn't want a supervisor on there, they wanted like a volunteer.
I think so.
We have not found a volunteer.
So are there any others that I need to respond to? I contacted EMA, E911, so they know I'm their guy. Child Care Board, I contacted them, they know I'm their guy. So I just gotta find out
Hazmat.
who to visit with at Hazmat and then Molly Scott. Does Molly Scott have a Carroll County email? You know?
No, but I have her email, I can forward it to you.
Perfect, thank you. And then anything else that you guys need me to do?
So you're the head of the safety there.
Oh, that was one I wanted to ask about. I'm the head of the safety committee. Am I? I mean,
I think Jamie Webker and Jeff Cullen
Till they
agreed
appoint
to
somebody, and they're,
kind of spearhead that until we got it permanent.
is it, I exchanged emails with Jeff Cole and he didn't mention anything about it, but Jamie would also be,
Yeah.
and he's got a Carroll County email.
cause I think they're looking,
Jeff does too.
doing something different during the.
Okay. Chief bottle washer. Anything else?
The alternate on landfill, but I don't plan on missing any meetings in the next 4 months.
Why not?
We were like.
Was she the alternate on, mental health? I didn't.
Would you like to be? Pretty interesting.
I never missed.
On the
You
landfill.
can, yeah.
You don't ever miss them.
I know.
Just go. You go. Public's invited.
Really?
Yeah. I learned a lot of stuff in 2 years. Cash, baby, cash.
Yeah, we'll have to get that updated online to his name.
Just as long as there's nothing else, I don't wanna miss it.
This thing is way off.
Yeah, we're on the one looking on the one online.
Online.
Okay,
So on the one that, there's one that's on the online one, that vacant one, the Nick Cullen for county board of health.
That replaced Dr. Bear. That replaced Dr.
nothing
Bear.
else, something
Yeah.
checkable.
The only one you probably gotta get those ads there.
You may want to put on our mind as well, ambulance board chair. We don't meet frequently.
You don't meet every month?
Well,
We hired a company called GEMT that does all the past due accounts.
But not the billing, or who's handling billing these days?
That's who does it, GEMT.
They do the monthly billing and the past due.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
They do the Medicare.
That's what, I'm sorry, that's what, I'm sorry, yes.
We have an office manager that does the other. billing.
Okay,
Well, we receive, every week, Jamie sends us an update or Scott or I are there.
I thought he was
I'm
talking
just
about
sort
new
of
bill.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what Russell said, that's why they always used to meet was,
Oh, sure.
you know,
Anything else?
that's, the one on the website still shows, okay. Safety, okay, got it, thank you.
I'll update the list and resend it out.
No, I think it's good. I'm good,
All right,
thank you.
yes. Next item on the agenda is committee report. And I can go. Last week I did newspaper radio. I received quite a few calls on the 2 mile presentation that we received. I spent most of my weekend, and this is not an underestimate, but I did spend most of my weekend getting the future assessors interviews lined up and also receiving and keeping track of any questions that they would like us to do. I did have a long conversation with Dick Werneman over the phone. With Courtney about getting the agenda for the conference board as well. This week I have the assessor interviews. I have Region 12 Executive Board and Policy Board. And I think I'm going to be doing the chamber golf outing Friday.
I can go next then. I really didn't have a lot, but I did have some conversations with some constituents up at Maple River. And those were pretty favorable. This week, Tuesday got CCGP. And, also I got newspaper and radio this week.
I'll be real quick, the only thing I had was the conference board.
last week, Monday was conference board, Tuesday I went out to roads, looked at payables. Friday courthouse payables. I did give everybody an email from Sarah on the 2 mile. I've had several conversations on that also. This week, tomorrow morning, 6:30 landfill meeting, Mike, if you want to come. Tomorrow at noon, CCGP, presentation meeting. Thursday night at 6:30, policy council at Region 12. And then I do have a couple of questions. Have we ever contacted Renee on any possible plan changes or handbook changes?
I contacted Renee.
Okay,
She said no. The one we had discussed is probably not one you would put in handbook. It'd be something that just as a board, we would remember to do every year if we wanted to look into doing more of a evaluation at the end of the year.
paid leave or sick times when I was. And then I just had a question for Mike on the Fricky wall. Is that still gonna be done this year?
Yes.
Or any updates on that?
Yes, I will contact him in a minute.
Yeah, I just didn't know if
Yeah.
it was gonna be August.
I actually drove by there yesterday to see if he started.
I drove by.
Yeah.
That's all.
Last week I was on vacation. This week I have conservation, tonight. And Thursday I have, Region 12 Health Council.
Courtney?
I got my book upstairs. But I know we have 2 public hearings next week.
Ridge and the tenure comprehensive plan. Right, Courtney, Albert Ridge and tenure.
There's a motion, is there a
comprehensive
second?
plan. Second.
A motion and second, discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.